Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well today. Yesterday, Aaron Hennig posted a video and a great discussion ensued on the topic of toxic work environments. I shared some comments there, but wanted to center today's video on that same topic as a continuation of that discussion. I've worked in some very toxic work environments. It's probably one reason why I like having my own firm, so I don't have to work in someone else's toxic environment. I've had clients, I've fired clients who had very toxic work environments because sometimes it's hard to contain that environment internally, and so anyone within that organization's orbit can be negatively impacted. I've had friends who've worked in toxic environments and had actual health issues, and once they left those jobs, their health issues cleared up. So that shows you, the impact on health and well-being that kind of environment can have. And about 9 years ago, my successful PR firm, it was very successful. I've had it now for 15 years, but about 9 years ago, my revenue was good, but I wasn't doing that well. My work-life balance was out. I was overworked and just unhappy. And that's when I read a book called StrengthsFinder 2.0. I was introduced to the Gallup's Clifton StrengthsFinder program. And I really used that program to focus on my strengths rather than just focusing on my weaknesses, and to really turn things around with my company and myself personally. And so I've used that ever since. And that's one reason why recently I decided to become a Gallup certified strengths coach to help other professionals and teams kind of realize their strengths and turn things around like I did. Gallup's done a lot of research on these types of environments. And, workers, employees who focus on their strengths, on using their strengths every day, have like a 3 times better quality of life. They're more productive. Teams that focus on their team members' strengths are actually more profitable. Employees and team members who get to use their strengths every day are 15% less likely to quit their jobs. And it's interesting, as Gallup has looked at teams, there's environments that where the managers focus on giving, it's a weakness-based, deficit-based development model where they focus on your weaknesses. You ever get one of those performance reviews where it's like a paragraph of what you did good and then like 5 or 6 paragraphs of what you didn't do well. In those types of environments where they give negative feedback, actually, they're not good. They're not even comparable to strengths-based environments, but they actually do better, somewhat better than when you get no feedback, because employees kind of feel underappreciated and totally ignored, and that's actually worse than getting negative feedback. Which brings to mind, if you've ever read the book, it's related to StrengthsFinder, called How Full Is Your Bucket by Tom Rath, who wrote StrengthsFinder 2.0. He tells a story about, I think it was the chief army medical officer looked at medical reports of POWs during the Korean War. And he looked at those POW camps, and it was interesting. Their level of physical torture wasn't as high as in other wars, but they had a 8% death rate, which was much higher. And so what they found was it was mental torture centered on isolation and negative feedback, right? They actually found that when a soldier would punch a captive or an American soldier, that soldier would actually have this impact of giving them something to live for, because they were so mad and they wanted to get back at them. When they ignored them, isolated them, took away all hope, that's when the physical aspect came into it. So it's interesting. We talk about those toxic work environments having health and well-being impacts as well. And so, and Aaron and I went back and forth on, working within your strength zone. The StrengthsFinder assessment is a great way for teams and managers and individuals to kind of learn what their unique talents are, so they can invest in those talents, put people in the right roles so they can turn them into strengths. But even short of that, we'll work with teams who haven't taken the assessment. And, one thing that we'll do that's very simple is, it's an exercise called the best of me. And you look back to a day or a few days over the last month, and a day where you were really in the flow and things were going really, really well. And you try to replicate those days, because it's those days when you were probably working in your strength zone. You weren't put in a position of trying to work with your weaknesses all day. Things are easier. They come easier to you. And so that's a good way to do it, short of taking the StrengthsFinder assessment. The toxic work environments, I think are largely, I mean, sometimes you get a boss who's just, or a manager who's just downright mean, right? But oftentimes it's exacerbated by the negative feedback, right? They don't know how to be critical without being negative. And they also focus on your weaknesses, which is actually the prevalent development model we're all used to from teachers, coaches, and managers, right? So working in your strength zone, having a team that gives good strengths feedback, which means looking at the best of you, finding out the talents, your skills, your knowledge, that you can invest in to work in your strength zone. Those are the environments that are least toxic, with employees who have a better quality of life, are more profitable, more productive. The teams are more profitable, and the team is a healthier team. So I look forward to your comments, your agreements, disagreements, and thanks, Aaron, for starting this great discussion.